You're listening to Real Talk with Waz. I'm very excited to have you. Enjoy this episode. So we got Marisa Moorhouse in the house. And Marisa is a former Miss New Hampshire and a soon-to-be psychologist.
I wouldn't say soon, but one day.
How far out are we?
I'll graduate in 2027. Starting my third year next week.
Okay, so yeah, that's a little bit of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Soon to be is
Sure.
We'll call it that.
Sure.
But yeah, I am excited to have you on. And why don't you tell me a little bit more about you, or something that you might want people to know?
Sure. I am from Manchester. We actually went to high school together. And kind of navigating my career has been a little bit of an obstacle. In high school, that's when I was Miss New Hampshire, and I entered the world of nonprofit work and volunteering. And that's where I definitely found that I love connecting with people and enjoy interactions, especially with kids. And so I decided to completely change what I was doing. At that time, I was actually in flight school and wanted to be a pilot. And then I decided that that was too boring and
Wow.
I was like, oh, this is a cool hobby, but not a forever thing.
Yeah.
So that's when I started studying psychology. Then I learned I hate children after getting a degree in child psychology. But I also then knew that I didn't want to stop learning. And so while all of my mentors told me to not go to grad school right away, I said, no, thank you. And I applied to a bunch of different doctoral programs my senior year of college and got into a few, which was cool. I had my option. I didn't think I was going to get to pick where I went, but I did.
There you go.
And that's what drove me to be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Miss New Hampshire era, that kind of showed you that you wanted to help people.
Yeah. It was probably one of the most challenging years of my life.
Yeah.
I consider it to have been like my year of fame, as you will. I had a pretty big spotlight on me.
Especially at a younger age, too.
Yeah.
Which might be tough for some people to handle.
Yeah, I was the youngest at Miss America. One of the youngest at Miss New Hampshire that year. Is my first time competing for Miss New Hampshire. So I was competing against these incredible young women who had competed like 6-7 times. And I kind of just showed up as a newbie and won. So that was also really hard because I didn't have a lot of the support that I thought I would have had. I'm happy it was one and done. I'm happy I didn't compete more than once.
Do you think if you didn't get it the first go round, you would have won again?
No. So the reason I competed is for scholarships. It paid for my undergrad. Yeah. I have no debt from undergrad, which is phenomenal.
That's smart.
Largest and leading scholarship organization for women in the nation. But I didn't have the best experience leading up to it. And then being Miss New Hampshire had its challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my age had to do with it, just being in high school. Like I went back to school on Monday and everyone was mean to me.
Because you were the new celebrity.
Yeah, because I pulled up in a car that said Miss New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll definitely do it.
So, but at the same time, like I would not be where I am without that program. Like no college debt's pretty cool. And then networking and the personal growth I had through that year was well worth it.
It's tough at that age to be famous for a sec.
I don't know if I would use the word famous.
Yeah, because it's interesting because we never really talked in high school at all. Yeah. I kind of just knew you as Miss New Hampshire because that's, so a lot of people I'm sure that didn't really know you, that's all they knew of you, which makes it, I guess, harder to approach you or want to understand you.
Yeah, and there's a big misconception about the pageant community. A lot of people think it's like this glitz and glamorous, like I put on a dress and then I go on a stage and I like win a crown and money, when in reality I did 40 hours a week of community service, created an organization that was statewide, and gave a whole year of my life to serve the state of New Hampshire and fundraise money for multiple organizations. And people just see like, oh,
she's a
pretty girl. And I'm like, okay, thanks. But I did a lot more than that. So
yeah.
So
how was it in those like fundraising events? How was that experience?
Yeah, they were kind of all over the place. Like my year, I was the Goodwill Ambassador for Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. So I worked to raise money for Boston Children's Hospital. And I was able to go down there and meet a lot of the kiddos. We had like Princess and Prince Day, and kids would come out of their hospital rooms and they would come and hang out, and we would do fun activities, or we'd bring stuff up to their hospital rooms. But a lot of fundraising, a lot of monetary donations. Having a kid in the hospital is hard. It's more than just having a kid in the hospital. It's who's going to cook meals for the other kids at home, or like school supplies for the other kids at home. Hotels for parents, like sleeping on the floor in the hospital while your kid's having a life-saving operation is not fun. So being able to provide for their families, that was one of like my favorite things, was working with Children's Miracle Network.
Yeah, it's hard. You don't really think about it when, you know, someone's affected by whatever it may be that puts them in the hospital. There's more repercussions other than just them being in the hospital.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes, the financial hardship and all that stuff. And I think it's, you know, important to highlight that. And it's good that you were able to be there for some kids, you know?
Yeah, and they get excited. They don't really understand what's going on. They just see like, she has a crown, she must be cool. Yeah. And then they get to hang out. And
they just get a little burst of positivity, which is sometimes all someone needs, you know? But yeah, that's good. Now, so you started pilot school and then said you thought it wasn't for you?
No, I actually loved flying. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then I thought a lot about like longevity of my career. And after like being Miss New Hampshire, I was constantly giving back to my community. And I had that like selfish feeling of like, I'm doing something good in this world. And I did not feel that way flying. I felt like, I'm having a really good time and this is super fun. But in reality,
I would say my pilot when I'm flying A to B is pretty... I'm pretty grateful for him.
Yeah.
He's definitely doing a lot.
But like at the end of the day, I'm an extrovert sitting in a cockpit with one other person.
Yeah.
Not suitable forever.
Everyone's different, but going the psychology route, how has that been?
It's been great. I had, a great experience in undergrad.
That's a lot of schooling. How many years total?
It depends what you want to do. So I did a 4-year bachelor's degree, which fortunately I did in 3 years instead to kind of cut some time off. And then some people go ahead and get their master's, and that's usually 2 years. And then a doctorate is 5. So I'm kind of taking like the shortest route you possibly can. I did 3 years for my bachelor's, and then I'll do 5 years for my doctorate. Okay. So total of 8. But
you're not doing the 2 years in between?
No, I did not do my master's.
Gotcha. So you don't need a master's then to get the doctorate?
No. Some programs require that you have that.
Yeah.
Some do not. It kind of just depends on like your experience. I was fortunately able to do a lot of internships and work a full-time job in the field in undergrad. So I had like a decent resume. So applying for a doctorate program without a master's, since I had some work experience, was fine.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Now, what type of people are you dealing with, like clientele, patient-wise? Like, what are you doing for work while you're going to school? So I work at a level 2 trauma center emergency room in their psychiatric department. So within the emergency room, we have a psychiatric emergency room, 6 beds. It's kind of like what you see in the movies of the padded walls and the restraints. And the beds are like nailed to the floor. You can't move them. The chairs weigh 200 pounds, so you can't throw them.
people are in like
the
ward. Paper scrubs. Yeah. It's, I'll bring patients in and they're like, this is like Valley Street. This reminds me of jail. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. The food's better here.
So you're
I don't know.
like a security guard. Then.
No. Sometimes it feels like I'm a babysitter. So I work with folks who are either presenting themselves to the hospital or are brought in by the police, or their loved ones, whatever the situation may be, having a psychiatric crisis or an emergency. So I see a lot of psychosis. I see a lot of substance use. I see a lot of manic and bipolar. I see a lot of folks who have attempted suicide. And then I also see people who just like are having anxiety for the first time and think they're having a heart attack. So
you see some pretty crazy things.
Yeah, it's a dangerous job. But I do like it. Keeps me on my toes. I have become friends with a lot of the people of Manchester through my work.
So with seeing some of the stuff that you see, how do you remain so level-headed and get through those days? Because I'm sure there's some rough days.
Yeah, yesterday was a rough day. It's just about showing up to my next shift with a fresh set of eyes. And also taking time for myself, taking my breaks, which you don't often get. But it's a 12-hour shift, so a lot can happen in 12 hours. Yeah, I get a 30-minute break that I try my hardest to take. But if you work with anyone in nursing or you talk to anyone in the field of nursing, like it's a very burnt out, tough field to be in. And we don't get a lot of appreciation, especially in the world of emergency care. Like it's a treat 'em and yeet 'em system. And
treat 'em and yeet 'em.
We don't want to be that way, but there's almost not much else we can do when we have 42 beds or whatever it may be available. 10 nurses and 36 people in the waiting room, ranging from finger laceration because I misused my stapler to unconscious. And it's like getting screamed at constantly, and
you're probably just numb to it at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me develop a very thick skin and also an appreciation for my own health and wellness.
Yeah, that's good. So, I mean, it gives you perspective, which is, it's good to notice that and not get too consumed by it.
Yeah, because I'll have like a patient come in. I was actually having a conversation with a patient yesterday and they were like, yeah, I go to the ER like 5 or 6 times a week. And I was like, I know, I'm there.
Yeah.
I see you all the time. And
it's like the hotel.
Sometimes
motel.
Feels like hotel. But the system's broken and me saying that doesn't fix it. So there's not really much we can do.
Yeah. But I mean, it sounds like you have a positive outlook on it. How do you separate all that craziness at work from your like personal life?
It's hard. I think also working in the medical field, I can't bring my work home. It's illegal. Like I can't steal my work computer and bring my files home. That's a HIPAA violation.
Yeah.
I can't, if my patient calls me, like I'm going to call 911. Why did you get my phone number? This is weird. Like I have the system in place to kind of protect me from that. Like if a patient shows up at my door, like,
you got a bigger
bad.
problem.
Like you, right? Like you don't have that sort of like steadfast start and end where people can call you at all hours. Like I unfortunately get that, clock out, go home. If I see a patient on the side of the road, I run.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not working today. So
when you clock out, what do you do to shut it off? Or is it easy for you to just separate it and not think about it?
I think it's easier now. When I first started in the field, when I first began like therapy and counseling, I would like go home at night and rerun my sessions and think like, did I give this good advice, or, what happened with this patient, and did I set them up with the best resources, and I sent them to this rehab. Maybe I should have sent them to this rehab. And now I'm just like, maybe I'm a little jaded. But I'm much better at like acknowledging that I can only do so much to help a person change their life. In the end, they have to be the one to change their life.
Yeah.
Like they have to be the one to hit reset. I can only encourage them to do it so much.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing with therapy. It's almost like accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I think therapy is just another form of accountability. It's like gives you an outlet to just convey how you're feeling, and I feel like a therapist really just spits it back at you and tells you like, you can do this.
Mm-hmm. And everyone practices so differently. I definitely am like an existentialist and a humanist. And when I have patients talking to me and I'm doing counseling and therapy, like I don't give them the answers. I make them figure it out themselves. And so people hate that and people love it. Like it just kind of depends on the day. Well, some people don't want to work for, like they're having an issue, so solve it for me. You're the professional. I'm here to see you. That's not how I work. That is how some people work, but that's not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you go to therapy?
I don't. I actually don't. I went to therapy for a while. It's kind of a part of like training to be a therapist or early career therapist. Like you go to therapy.
So you didn't really go to therapy. You went as a study.
No, I went.
You went there to just examine the therapist instead of venting to the therapist.
I've been a patient on the other side of the couch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you find that beneficial, or do you find that you can't really, because I feel like from your perspective, it's different because that's kind of what you're shooting for, right?
Yeah. And it was very helpful when I was younger. And then as I began training as a therapist, I see through it. And I think I just would like recognize the techniques that my therapist was using, and I'd call her out on it. And I'd be like, why are you doing like this intervention?
Yeah.
And if it wasn't an intervention that I believed in as a clinician, it was really hard for me to take it as the patient.
Mm-hmm.
So it just like no longer worked out. I broke up with her. She's great though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a specific type of client or patient that you're aiming to help like in your future career?
Yes. So I am interested in working with military folks, veterans, first responders. I like to work with men with trauma, toxic masculinity, something I'm very interested in. I'm very interested in working with individuals who were trained to not feel anything, and then they have a feeling, they don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And I like working in chaotic situations, hence the emergency room.
I know a lot of realtors that could keep you in business.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I should add that to my list too. But yeah, I'm very interested in some of those, I guess.
Interesting.
Working with people in those careers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like PTSD and stuff
PTSD,
like that.
trauma, substance abuse. There's a lot of drinking. There's a lot of alcoholism in those fields. And then also personality disorders. Like who's best to do those jobs? Narcissists. Mm-hmm. Like it's proven people who are able to not think about how their actions impact other people tend to do well in those careers.
Yeah.
I enjoy working with very strong personalities. I have a very strong personality. I like to be challenged. I enjoy challenging other people. Mm-hmm. I think that's how we grow as humans. And so I get along with them great.
That's cool.
And they take to me, I take to them.
Yeah. I feel like it's almost, it it can almost be an outlet for you too.
What do you mean?
Because you're saying you have a strong personality. I think as a therapist, you might be able to, learn as you're teaching someone else or helping them through their problems. Kind of like a life coach might actually get some clearance or, clarity on something as they're talking to someone. How they say, like, when you're teaching someone, it's the best way to learn yourself because you get a different perspective on it. So I guess in a way it kind of could help you.
Oh, for sure. I learned so much from my patients. I think also with my age, I'll walk into the room and I'm like, hi, I'm Marisa. I'm, here for mental health and blah, blah, blah. And I get I'm 65 years old. What am I going to learn from you? You look like you're 16. What do you know about life? And I'm like, well, tell me about it. Tell me about life. What does life mean? What in your life has been important? What stands out? What should I look for in life? And they're like, oh, okay. You have a brain cell.
Has there been any specific conversations or moments that you take with you or that you've learned from?
Yes. And I mean, what pops into my head first are like the violent situations I've been in or like conversations that I've had with people who have gone through some horrible things, like who have just escaped human trafficking, or people who have gone through some horrific abuse. Kids who were just taken from their families.
Yeah, that's tough.
So like that I carry with me, and that's hard. Hearing that constantly. Yeah. And we have this term called vicarious trauma. And it's all about, while I'm not physically or emotionally or actually experiencing this trauma, I'm constantly hearing about it.
Yeah, so you're kind of like living it in your mind, how you think it would have played out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that probably happens in a lot of different situations too. Because I feel like us as humans just naturally do that with a lot of situations where we're like, how did it play out? We play things out in our head as if we were there. Like if you see a car accident on the side of the road,
right?
That type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Now, do you, because it's a very tough field, it sounds like, do you have advice for someone who's younger or who is like that high schooler now that might be considering this type of field, or let's say therapy or psychology or healthcare in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you can do in the world of healthcare. And I'm not the biggest fan of like a 4-year college. Like, I don't think everyone needs that. Depending on what you want to do, I encourage, especially like high schoolers, like go do a 6-8 week course and get your LNA and go work in the hospital and see how you feel.
That'll give you a good idea.
Yeah.
So how old do you have to be to do that?
So I think some high schools have programs, but I'm guessing 18.
Okay. So yeah, so maybe take that course, try it out, see if it's something that you can handle first.
Yeah. There's also so many administrative positions in healthcare where you're not like directly providing medical services to patients, but like registration, like our registration ladies in the ED, like they also just see as much as we do. They're not physically restraining the patient or medicating the patient or getting assaulted by the patient, but like they watch it, they see it, they still have interactions with folks.
They're like spectators.
Yeah, they're great.
Watching like a UFC fight.
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way.
Wow,
sometimes I'm like, where do I work again?
I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
So like even like the front desk people see it.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like you come into your appointment, you're stressed, you're nervous, like you don't want this procedure done. The first person you see is whoever's working at the front desk. So they need to be just as trained and being able to support that patient as the doctor does. So you're still able to get skill set without needing...
Do they have to go to school for that?
I don't know.
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
I'm guessing like a high school diploma.
Really?
To work a front desk.
Some kind of they must have to take like first aid or something.
Oh, everyone does. You can't work in a hospital and not know how to do CPR.
But there's got to be some criteria for it.
Yeah.
You know, but I never even thought of that. And I was there was one time I brought my sister to the hospital. It was late night. She like hit her head, and the lady that came in after us was freaking out. She like fell. She thought she was dying. Like she literally, all she did was slip and fall. And she came in saying like she like couldn't feel her head. She's like, I'm getting dizzy, like screaming. And like now that I think about it, the only person that was there was the front desk lady. There's nobody around. So she had to take all that in. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So
I guess those are good entry level.
Yeah. Because like nursing school is a lot. Getting like a degree in psychology is a lot. And if you don't know if you want to do it, like try something in the field that's not medical first.
Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself within 5 years? I mean, you said you're almost done. You got 3 years left of schooling till you're official. Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So at that point, I would be fully licensed and practicing independently, which is weird.
Is that scary?
That's scary. Yeah. But also really cool. Something I've been working towards for a while. My end goal is to work for the United States Public Health Service. Like I really want to do work with natural disasters. I want to be able to work with politicians. I want to be able to work with first responders who are going to events that are like really intense, like mass shootings and hurricanes and things like that. Like I want to be able to do that major crisis work.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. So at that point, hopefully starting
would you travel with that, or would they?
So it is a part of like
I think you'd have to travel to where the natural disaster happened.
So their deployments are like a month at a time, but they're usually within the country. So or CONUS is like what they would call it. So like the border, like CONUS is like out of North America-ish.
Oh, okay.
So like within the country or like at the border, whatever it may be, whatever they need. So that's like the end goal of what I plan to do as like a practicing doctor.
And what do you got to do to get there? Do you think you could just apply to something like that, or is there steps to get into that?
Well, with school, I have a bunch of clinical rotations.
Yeah.
So I did my first rotation in pediatric neuropsychology. And then I'm doing my second one, which I start next week, in family medicine. And then my third one hopefully will be at a VA. And then I'll do my internship, which wherever will take me, I'll go.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So that's 4 years of experience on top of what I already have and what I do for work.
Out of those 4, do you think there's one that's easier than the other?
No.
They all have their own challenges.
Yeah. Kind of depending on what you want. I mean, my first practicum was working with kids with autism and ADHD and learning disabilities and intellectual disabilities. And I was like, yeah, this is not it for me. No, thank you. I'm all set. All set. I will take a 55-year-old man who thinks he's God over a 7-year-old boy with ADHD any day of the week.
Yeah.
Any day.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. Although I've had teachers on here and they love kids. They love being able to help them.
Good for them. Someone should.
Yeah, we need people like that. That's why teachers are great people too. Yeah. Because they take on more than we think they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think you'd ever get into a teaching position where you're, teaching your, I don't know, other students to get to where they need to be? Yeah.
So part of a doctorate is the opportunity to teach at a post-secondary level. So I'm assistant teaching this year, assessment. courses at my school. And then I'm hoping to adjunct teach at an undergrad university after that.
What is that?
Huh?
Adjunct teach?
So not like a staff faculty, not like that's my full-time job and I have an office there, but I'll just like go teach 2 classes.
Oh, okay.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't see myself being like a full-time faculty member, like at a university doing research and teaching 5 classes. Like I don't see myself doing that, but I do see myself teaching on the side.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah. Not a full-time thing.
No. Yeah, that'd be a lot.
I think I just get a little bored.
Yeah.
I think what I like about my work is that it's different every day.
I think you like the stuff that's hard and tough to do.
I like patient interaction. If I was teaching, I wouldn't have patients. I'd have students. And you're helping them in a much different way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's I would say more rewarding helping the people that you help, quicker gratification versus teaching. You don't really get the gratification until like they're graduated type of thing, or like they're done the school year. It's also just such a different relationship with a student that can come into my office and sit down and ask me about my personal life and get to know me, where, you know, that sounds great, but I enjoy not telling my patients anything about myself, to giving them a fake life story sometimes just so that they leave me alone and don't find me out in the real world. Like, is it hard to keep up with your real life when you're giving all your fake life stories? I try not to like lie to my patients because it feels inauthentic and they know when I'm lying. But like when you ask me how old I am 36 times in one shift, I'm gonna yell at you. Or like what your social security number is. Where do you live? Can I have your phone number? What do you do? What's your last name? Where do you go to school? How old are you? And some of the time they're just curious. Like they just want to know. Have you had them like find you on like social media and stuff? Yeah. Yeah. Like my accounts are private. My profile picture is the back of my head. I don't want people to find me. Yeah. No thanks. That would be tough. Especially living in the city that I work in. So like driving down the street sometimes at night or driving in certain areas, I'll like look and I'm like, oh, I know them. Jeez. Okay. Yeah. So with this, with your career and everything, what would you say is one of your biggest achievements over like the past, 3 to 5 years? I don't know. Oh gosh, I don't know. It's a tough one because you haven't like officially graduated all the schooling. So like, what have you gained as one of your favorite achievements? I honestly, getting into grad school was probably because no one told me that I couldn't do it. They just kind of insinuated that I should wait a little bit longer, work in the field for a little bit, get a little bit more experience. Most people in my program were like 5 to 10 years older than me. So they have more experience in the field, more life experience too. Like they have marriages and families and children and, have done a lot of those things, where I'm not there yet. But I've also learned and realized that I don't need those things in order to do what I want to do. Like I didn't need to wait. Yeah. The couple years or a few years to go to grad school. I'm capable of doing it. Some people like start a family before going to grad school. Yeah. That would be tough, wouldn't it? Yeah, there's people in my cohort with young kids. Wow. Having kids in the program too. We've had 3 babies in my cohort born. Wow. How do you have a baby and still go to school and go to work? I'm struggling to feed myself. Like remembering to like take care of myself, let alone another human. It's a lot. And they all have like great spouses, and I think it also comes down to like financial resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Now, how do you get yourself to remember to eat and focus on the things that are important outside of work? That's a tough one for a lot of people.
I think you just do it. Like, there's no way everyone's going to have their own system of doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm a calendar person. You've been using your calendar. I forced you to use your calendar.
I'm more of a calendar person now too.
Like, I have to put everything in my calendar, whether it's like getting dinner with my friends or like work, no matter what it is, I have to write it down. I have to schedule it in my day. Mm-hmm. And I have to have a routine. And it was tough because I was working night shift this summer. So I was working overnights.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sleeping. I'd sleep like 8 a.m. to noon if I was lucky.
Which is crazy to me. I can't even function off of 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I would get like 4.5, 5 hours.
That would kill me.
It was awful. So I had no routine. I was miserable. Don't work night shift. It's a carcinogenic according to the CDC. And it's real. It literally makes you die.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
It's awful. The money's great. The paychecks are beautiful. Some people love it. It works for a lot of people. And they're like, this is the best.
Some people are nocturnal. They can do it.
I'm not. Yeah. I like to sleep when it's dark out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a night owl, I'd say. I like going to bed at a reasonable time.
Yeah, if I could go to bed at 9 o'clock every day, I would.
9 o'clock, maybe 10. 10's a good number.
Wake up at 5 or 6.
Yeah. Got to do it. You got to set it. It's all in the routine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just having a routine has been helpful.
Now, what are you passionate about outside of work?
I'm a big reader. I love reading. I have a nice little collection of books. I used to like keep up with it
and much bigger collection than mine, that's for sure.
Yeah. I used to like keep up with it and write reviews, and like I had an Instagram, and like I don't do that anymore. I don't have time. I don't care.
Yeah. I find that doing stuff like that can ruin your hobbies.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is not fun. I'll write a review. And I still will write a review, but not post it.
Yeah.
It's like just for the author. And I also found I would read a book and I'd be like, this sucked. Now I have to write a review on it and be nice. When it was awful, because I just can't do that.
Why?
Imagine if you wrote a book and then someone was like, 2 stars, that was bad.
Wait. What do you think is harder to do? Direct a movie or write a book?
Direct a movie.
Okay, so what if you were a director of a movie and you just spent all this money, had all these people together, and you just made an awesome film in your head? And then the critics go in there the first week it opens, and they say, rotten.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can give a book writer 2 stars. No problem. If a movie person can take it, a book writer sure can.
I just can't.
I prefer like Audible, podcasts, movies over book reading, but I do like to read because I feel like it makes you smarter.
It does.
You don't fall behind the curve, because a lot of people, younger kids, don't know how to read, I feel
No, and they don't know how to write cursive, and it's weird. And I'm always reading for school. I'm always reading some article or some scientific journal or a textbook. And so when I can pick up like a novel with a story and fake people that I can just like get lost in, it's nice. I'm like, oh, wow, I don't have to diagnose someone. Like, I can just read this and I can stop whenever I want. And I don't have to write a paper on it. And I don't have to report back to my professor what it said. And I don't have to care. I can skip 2 lines and miss information, and it's not going to impact my life at all.
That's very true. Yeah. I feel like for a little bit, like I dreaded reading because of high school.
Yeah.
And then after high school, it was like a couple years. Once I was like in the working world, I was like, I need to read again. Because like, I don't know, it was challenging then, and it was annoying because you had to take a test and, read out loud to like your class. And
I hated that.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan either.
I would like count the paragraphs to like where I was, practice it. in my head
Really?
and then read it.
I never really practiced it. I'd be like, okay, when's my part coming? And I didn't want to like be like caught off guard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still like reading. I think it's good.
Yeah. Me too. Outside of work. I don't think so.
What do you, no big plans? Traveling?
I mean, yeah, some stuff coming up soon.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where to?
Nashville.
Nashville, that's right.
And then hopefully New York.
Okay.
And then my stepmom did text me today and asked me if I wanted to go to San Diego in December.
Oh, wow.
And then Alaska next year. I'm going to Denver next year too. I like to travel. Maybe that's my passion.
Traveling. Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
I would love to just travel.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just start like a travel blog.
We could.
And you just went to school for all these years just to give up and start traveling.
Wasted so much time and money.
Yeah. But you'd be so happy backpacking through the mountains, right?
I'm sure. I don't think I'd have any problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do enjoy. I love new places.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the bad ones. Like I was just in Seattle last week, and I would not recommend people to go to Seattle. Really? Some people may love it, right? Like
there's a lot of homeless people. It
just felt like I was in Manchester. I didn't feel like I went anywhere. I didn't feel safe, and I was by myself. And so I'd go like explore the city on my own. And I enjoy being able to just like go out by myself for a night. And like, that's hard as a young woman anywhere, but especially there, I didn't particularly enjoy it.
Gotcha.
It was just dirty, but like the touristy things were fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on and telling us a little bit about yourself and your experiences throughout your career. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.